Hey there, Yarnpreneurs. Happy Friday. I'm so excited to have Sarah with me today. I have Sarah from Knit a Bit of Whimsy. Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey! So good to be here, Jess.
I am really excited to talk about this today because I think it's a subject that people have questions about because they don't quite understand it. So we're gonna dive a little deeper. But before we do that, Sarah, can you tell us a little bit about kind of how you got started in the industry, what you do now? Give us some backstory.
Well, it's kind of long and convoluted, maybe. I don't know. Maybe it might be the same as everybody's, actually. I started knitting, actually, just when my oldest was, around the time she was born. I was on maternity leave from grad school. I've got my master's in psychology.
Awesome.
And during mat leave, I couldn't leave the baby alone. She would cry her head off if I wasn't looking at her.
Oh.
It was like the hardest thing in my whole life. But I found out that she was close to a year old and I could knit and still kind of be interacting with her, and she found that acceptable. So that's when I started knitting. She's 8 now, so about 8 years ago. And from there, I started selling a little bit of stuff on Etsy, like the finished objects, selling scarves, hats, whatever. And that was really fun, and I really enjoyed it. And actually went pretty, you never get paid enough when you're when you're selling on Etsy. And at some point I ran across Frenchie and Chelsea Fitch from Aroha Knits and Fiber Boss, respectively. And they were talking about making patterns, and I was like, oh my God, this is brilliant. So I kind of didn't even really get my feet wet with that quite when Frenchie was just in the Facebook group one day, and she's like, oh my God, I wish I knew what a VA was and how do I find one, because I think I need one, but I don't really know if I need one. I don't know how to get one. And I basically said, Frenchie, I don't know what they do either, but I'll do it. I'd love to be your VA. And so we kind of learned together about what a VA does and how to kind of work things through. So right now I'm working for Frenchie as a virtual assistant. She's kind of my main client. I pick up things here and there, but mostly I just work for Frenchie, as well as designing patterns, my own patterns, rather than selling the finished objects. I'm starting to sell the patterns, which is a little more, I can't say it's more lucrative, but at least it's more on my own, own terms. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Amanda's already posted your link in the comments.
Oh, Amanda,
so that's fantastic. I'm going to say hi real quick to a few of you guys who are joining us live. We have Amanda Pippin, obviously, Stephanie, nice. Amanda W. If you guys are watching on the replay, hi.
Yes.
All right. So I'm really excited to chat about this because I have a little bit of experience from one perspective. And I think, as we were talking kind of before we got on, there's two sides to this coin. There's a designer or a yarnpreneur who needs a VA, and then there's the VA who needs or wants to find work. So there's kind of two. We're going to cover both perspectives.
Exactly.
But let's start first with the basics. So for those of us who don't know what a VA or virtual assistant is or what they do, can you give us a summary of what's going on there?
No. Basically, I like to tell people it's the same as an in-person assistant. I basically do whatever needs to get done, right? And that's going to depend on who you work for and what your own skills are. People can specialize. There's virtual assistants that specialize in social media or data processing type, maybe not so much for knitters in particular, but there's VAs will have their own interests and their own specialties. So basically, for me, what I do a lot of is I do social media for Frenchie. I do a lot of putting up blog posts and kind of that administrative stuff that she'll write the blog post, but I'll make it pretty and put the pictures in and get it up there. Or she'll kind of write the bones of an email. I'll get it into ConvertKit. I'll send it out to everybody, right? So a lot of that kind of day-to-day administrative stuff that, Frenchie can obviously do, but that's not what she wants to be doing or should be spending her time in. She has more valuable things to be doing with her time. or
I
more
love
lucrative
that. Very simple explanation.
things.
Okay, so now that we know what a VA actually does, let's say I'm a designer and I need a VA. What is the best way for me to go about actually finding someone?
That's a really good question. I imagine it's a little bit different for everybody again. But what I find valuable, or at least I imagine you might have a better sense of whether it's valuable from your end. But the fact that I actually work in the industry, I think is hugely invaluable to somebody like Frenchie or yourself who needs somebody who can interact with people from this industry. So, I don't answer every email for Frenchie, or some of them I forward on. If you email hello@aroha.net, that's me. And so I'll decide, whether I can answer this or not, right? And I can answer simple things like people are saying, oh, my gauge swatch is the wrong size. What do I do? Right. And I can answer that. She doesn't have to spend her time doing that.
Right.
If it's detailed pattern support, obviously it's going to go on to her. So, just the fact that you can find somebody within the industry is huge, I think. And in that case, I say hang out in yarn groups like Knit and Chat or whatever. Fiber Muse, obviously, that's Frenchie's, so obviously I have to support that one. It's a pretty active group. I know some groups have like a weekly thread where you can kind of advertise yourself, promo yourself in those. We definitely have VAs and tech editors and that kind of thing that put a little blurb in there saying, hey, I'm a VA, I want to help. And kind of, make sure you gear it towards them. Like, what can you do for them? Start off with, are you tired of answering emails all day long? Are you tired of posting to Instagram and like getting crickets? Hire me. I'll get that. I'll like work on your engagement. And so you can really kind of to make sure to angle it for them, right? Like, why would they want to hire you? Because I think for a lot of people, we don't realize that it might be nice to hire a VA, but it really can take a lot off your plate, for sure.
It's fantastic.
Exactly.
Awesome. So now that we kind of have a better understanding of, and I think it's kind of just the opposite for the other side of the spectrum. You just have to keep your eye out for those people who are looking for help. And like you said, make sure you position it as what you can do for them and what you can help them out with.
Exactly.
So we talked about this before we got on the call, trying to figure out if someone actually fits with you. So what are some of the things you can do to see if, once you've actually answered that question, like, yeah, someone wants to hire me as a VA, like, how do you figure out if you're able to have a good working relationship with that person?
I would honestly probably suggest doing a bit of a trial run, like agree to, a couple weeks, give it a couple weeks to see how it goes. Frenchie and I just actually hired another helper, assistant type person. And I totally stalked her, like all the candidates. I totally stalked them, like, cause we asked for their Instagram and whatever, like, let us get to know you a bit. And so, if somebody had a totally different aesthetic or a different style, maybe it wouldn't have been such a good fit. It might have, and maybe we totally lost out on somebody, but I don't know if Frenchie's aesthetic is very like calm and peaceful, and mine again is kind of like that rustic, got a wood grain, everything, right? If we had gone with like some punk chick who is super cool, might not have fit in as well, right? Or had more, she would have struggled more kind of getting that, the emails to look similar and that kind of thing, right? Whereas, feel free to like stalk people. That's what we do now. We all, especially if we have businesses, we all are out there, right? So, and we definitely like, Skype beforehand or however you want to do it, have a Zoom call or whatever, and kind of chat, get to know each other a little bit. It's an interview. This is a job, so be afraid. Like, even as the interviewee, even as the person that's looking for work, don't feel bad to say, I don't think it's going to work. Kind of be interviewing them at the same time.
Yeah, I think some people are afraid to do that.
I think we are, like, even in regular jobs, but people don't want to go in and say, it's not going to work. I don't want this job. And that's actually something I learned from Etsy of all places. But as you're knitting stuff and people come in, people will message you with requests. And of course, at first it's like, oh my God, yes, I'll knit anything you want, no matter what it is, for like free, right? Like,
yeah.
And eventually I realized you can't do business like that, and you don't want to live like that. And if they came in with a request that wasn't my style, I'd say, you know what, no, and kind of move on from there. And I think that's important for all our jobs, is to remember that as the employee, you need to be happy too, and you need to feel like you fit too. So yeah, I just like to remind everybody to like, give that a, remember that and interview back.
I love that, because I also think it makes it clear that you know who you are and what you want and what you're doing. And I think for some of us, we may know, but we're afraid to say. And we don't want to, kind of be the one who's like, I don't, like, cool, you're going to give me some money, but I don't know, I'm not really going to enjoy this.
Exactly. And I mean, having those expectations up front as well. Like if I had gone in and Frenchie said, I want you to do social media. And I was like, oh, I thought I was going to be doing, I don't know, like financial. I was going to do the books. Like, you need to know that up front. Right. So it's good to have that conversation and say, you know what, even as the interviewee, tell them like, these are my strengths. This is where I think I can help you. And if I was interviewing with you, Jess, and you said, you know what, that's not actually what I need help with this time, it's going to be better off than waiting 2 weeks or 2 months and finding out that it was just a big waste of time.
Because I can say from the perspective of people, someone who has hired VA style help, the training process is like intense on both ends. Yes. And as the person who's spending the money, you don't want to have to train people more than once. You just don't. It just doesn't make any sense. So yeah, you want to know that, like, you're getting someone in there that's going to do exactly what you need them to do. And you don't want to waste time, like, teaching someone something when it's not going to work out. Now, have you had the experience of being in a situation where someone asked you to do, maybe not a trial run of like a specific period of time, but they asked you to do a specific like trial task or something like that?
I haven't personally. I totally makes sense though. Like, I was going to say Instagram again because I'm like social media brain this morning apparently. But that would totally make sense. Like, I mean, for example, the girl that we hired is like really part-time. Right. I think it's about 5 hours a week. But her specific thing is to interact in our Slack group and do a lot of kind of the cheerleading along the way, helping people out if they have trouble finding things. And she sends out a weekly email. So you can kind of look at that as kind of a trial task, right? Where it's like, okay, you have this one job. Obviously, if we keep growing and she's awesome, and so far she is totally awesome, then her tasks will expand, right? So I think that makes sense. Like, maybe that's not quite, because it's still kind of an ongoing thing. But, same idea though, right? Where you start small and see where it goes from there, for sure.
Well, it's funny because that's almost exactly what I did with Amanda. Yeah. And it's funny because from the perspective, again, of someone who has hired people, you'll kind of know, like, in the first, like, week or two. But then when you get someone like Amanda on your team, you are spoiled.
Exactly.
Completely spoiled. Amanda's fantastic. It was literally like night and day. And I did the same thing with her. It was like, here, like, have some fun in the Facebook group and like, let's just see how this goes. Exactly. And then, I was like, well, you're fantastic. You need more to do. Post on my Instagram. And like, now she sends out our our member newsletters. And like, so she does all of those things. And I also think, she's a great person to have as, she's literally, her title is community leader. Yeah. So she does a really good job of those things. And I think, until you've had someone in a position that really thrives,
Yeah.
it's almost like you don't even know what you're looking for.
Exactly. Well, that's
crazy.
something like community leader, like what qualifications can you write down that you're
Right.
like, this is what I need, right? Like
you're nice
you just
to
find
people,
out if it works.
right? Like you're nice
Yeah.
to people and you like I don't know what else there is that's involved,
Exactly.
but whatever it is that Amanda's got, like that's
Yeah.
it.
Exactly.
Amanda wrote blushing.
Oh.
Okay, cool. So now we totally got a little off track, but that was
Bit.
totally my fault. So let's talk about, cool, you found someone that you want to work for or with, and now, you know, like everything's going well, you got past the trial period or whatever it is, and you're kind of happy. What does compensation normally look like for a position like this? And is it always strictly monetary, or are there any other like alternative compensation / rewards and bonuses and all that good stuff?
Perfect. So I have to say, I don't know the monetary standard for among knitwear designers. Looking at VAs overall, I would say we're looking at probably about $20 to $25 an hour. Or a lot of them have more like task based, like I'm going to do your social media for this month, and they'll have like a flat rate. I'm going to say that I started a lot lower with Frenchie. Partly she's paying in, like she's in the States and I'm in Canada. So right there, I get a little, a little raise, right?
Yeah.
But the really big thing for me is that, you know, I started off, I was working about 5, maybe 10 hours a week. And my kids were both in speech therapy at the time. My daughter was I think she was starting to hit kindergarten that year. So, you know, you have places to be and families and everybody's young, and it really makes a difference if you can work those couple hours. And it's something awesome. It's something that I liked working on. It's personally interesting. It's not being a greeter at Walmart. It's, you know, I can set my own hours as long as I get stuff done. I mean, obviously there's deadlines, but often within the day, there's no like 3 o'clock, this needs to be done.
Right.
Or if there is, I know that in advance, so it's not a problem, right?
Yeah.
So I find that kind of thing so valuable. So for me, I was willing to take a smaller amount of money to make up for, like, you know what, I can do this on my own time. It's amazing. Plus, I'm working with Francoise from Aroha Knits. I mean, she's not really, really big, but she's kind of up there. She's definitely several steps ahead of me. And so just by working with her, I learned a ton. Right when I was starting with her, I can't remember if it was her first or second time she'd opened the doors for Swatch Studio, which is like her course on how to become a knitwear designer.
Yeah.
And she was like, hey, you know what? I can only give you, I think it was like $10 an hour to start. So it was definitely not a lot of money, but she's like, also, I'll give you this course for free. So I've got lifetime access to that. And she's always adding more stuff to that. So, you know, every time she does offer a new course or a new class, I'm in there. Like, I'm just automatically have access to everything, which right there, like, can be thousands of dollars worth. Right now, I think Swatch Studio, if you want to sign up, is like $50 a month. So it's a pretty good deal, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, like think outside the box, I guess, is my tip. Even if there isn't a direct, like, hey, here's this class you can have. Just working with people that are a little bit scaffolded above, or, you know, a little bit ahead of where you are. You can learn a lot just by kind of scaffolding, by watching what happens. You know, I watch Frenchie launch patterns, or she's got like this magazine format she's been doing, and watching that and seeing how that goes, you get a ton of tips. She's got this huge audience. So if something kind of flops, I'm like, okay, if it's even flopping for her, which it happens sometimes, you know, I don't have to feel so bad if my one pattern launch didn't go well, right? So, and you can learn from that, obviously. She does, and I can as well, kind of learn what works and what doesn't. And so there's a lot of good stuff that way as well.
I think that's fantastic. Yeah. I think, for lack of a better term, alternative compensation has become very popular, even not just in our industry, as entrepreneurs and just people in general are kind of not willing anymore to compromise on their happiness with their work.
Exactly.
And the things that they do, that it has become number one priority to enjoy what you do, and number two priority is to get paid well for it, right?
Totally, yeah.
And then, sometimes because of that priority shift, sometimes, the actual monetary compensation is a lot lower. But I can speak to personally working for people in the dance industry where it's been the same thing, I taught for them, and dance teachers usually get paid pretty well hourly, but we don't get a lot of hours,
right?
Because you can only teach so many dance classes in a week,
exactly,
for kids after school. So
yeah,
it then becomes kind of a matter of like you really learn about. As a kid, I thought I wanted to open up a dance studio. Like that was my dream. And then I started working for people who owned dance studios, and I was like, no, thank you. I'll be the teacher. I'll show up. I still love teaching. I still do teach. It's one of my favorite things in the entire world to do. But I do not want that responsibility, that all the other stuff that goes along with that. But those are the kinds of the side benefits of doing things that you love. So I think that's fantastic. And what would you say are some of the things that it has done for your family, just for you being able to work from home and kind of have that freedom and flexibility? What are some of the major benefits in that realm?
So much. Like I said, I was in grad school. Actually, I'm halfway through my PhD. Like I got pregnant during my PhD. And so it's kind of like a serious thing, right? Like grad school is like hard and you're constantly working, and mostly I worked pretty hard to keep it kind of a 9 to 5. So I would still see my husband, but at the same time, there's nights where you're there till 8 or whatever at night, or you're writing papers all weekend. And, I would email my professor. My plan was to become a professor and teach psychology at a university and do research, kind of like the typical professor thing, right? Yeah. And I would email it my supervisor, not expecting to get a response, email him at like 10 o'clock at night. And I'd get like replies at like 6 a.m. on a Sunday as he like read through my thing. And I'm like, okay, this is actually, once I had my daughter, it was like, this isn't what I want my life to look like, So, well, there was like this whole upheaval. Like, we moved back. We were in Ontario at the time. We moved back to BC, kind of before I was doing much of this as a business. But it was like, okay, let's kind of like reset. I don't want to do the professor thing. Make a new plan. And my big thing really was I want to make time for my family. I want to live a slower life. If you go on my website at all, it's like, I'm passionate about knitting and it's awesome, but I also am passionate about living a slower life, taking the time for the things that matter. I'm so grateful my husband works a job that we're pretty lucky. He makes enough money that I don't have to be working full time. Yeah. So this, this little bit that I get from Frenchie and from Patterns is kind of like extra money. So that's good. But yeah, it's just, to me, it's so valuable to me. It's, I could obviously go back to work, but this is so much more valuable. I don't know how else to say it, I guess. Like the fact that I can be here, I can make cookies with the kids if on a random Wednesday, that's what we want to do. I pick them up from school every day. They don't have to go to aftercare. And yeah, it's closer to that kind of ideal life for me. I mean, obviously lots of people have different ideals and I love that. I'm so glad that we can have different ideals. But yeah, for me, it's all about like slowing down that life and kind of, you can tell that I talk really fast and sometimes I get anxious easily and like kind of get up a few tears. So it's nice that I can like actually make the mental effort and the conscious effort to like slow down.
Yeah, I love that you use that term slow life, because that's one of my favorite things. Mm-hmm. And that feeds into on my end, I believe a lot in minimalism and mm-hmm. Less consumerism and all that kind of stuff. But it really goes back to like enjoying
exactly
the experiences that you have available to you and enjoying, the time that you have with your family, or enjoying the time that you have alone to work doing what you enjoy. Like those are all things that are, like you said, and I think using the word valuable is perfect because, you know, we're talking about alternative compensation. I mean, that's like, it's valuable. And for the people who, again, that is priority, that's super important to know that that's where you are. Like, this is what matters to me. And this is valuable to me to be able to do this. So that's awesome. I'm going to take a quick peek at our comments. I see a few people asking some questions and stuff. Sarah Adams said hello.
Hi, Sarah.
Let's see. I forgot to turn the ringer on my phone off. Amanda said, being an employer and being the boss is hard for most entrepreneurs, but it is so vital. Yeah, it definitely is. I think for some of us as yarnpreneurs, we tend to downplay that this is actually like a business and we're like actually the boss. Like it's a thing that people say, like, because, and I know what it happens because most people transitioned from a hobbyist.
Exactly.
Right. So most people are like, cool, I'm just going to like fool around and maybe make some money and whatever. Like that'll be, but I think the people who have found both monetary and, you know, actual, whatever they've defined success as, are the people who treated it like a true business. And that's one of the reasons.
You can never get really far ahead, I think, with that really hobby mindset.
Yes.
It's not bad to treat it as a hobby if that's what you want to do with it.
Yeah.
But if you want to turn it into like consistent income, I think it's so important to take that mind shift and say, okay, I'm a boss of an actual business.
Yeah.
And even when I'm talking to people, I still have a hard time. You know, I work for Frenchie as a virtual assistant. That, if nothing else, that should be a real job, right?
Yeah.
But I work from home, and a lot of people treat me like I don't have a real job, and it's so easy for me to fall into that. Like, virtual assistant, and also, like, I actually make patterns. I do make money on it once in a while. Like, it is a thing. I've even had to pay Ravelry. But it's always a big day, right?
Yeah. I think that's a very important point. And I have to say that this is why I love the term and why I use the term yarnpreneur so often. Because I think there's, unfortunately, a stigma in the world that entrepreneurs are a step above people who are self-employed.
Yes.
And
what is that?
Even small business owners. Like, entrepreneurs are seen as like these gods of, like, I don't know, they take the risks and they have there's a connotation there. And if we strip away the negative parts of that connotation, what we're left with is the fact that entrepreneurs are the people who are willing to not willing to compromise on what they want to create.
Exactly.
And I think that's why we have those feelings about them. And that's one of the reasons why I think that it's very important that I use the term yarnpreneur. Because I want people to identify with that. I want people to understand that, we're not here to, like, play around.
Exactly. Like this is serious. This is a business.
Like, we're having fun. But, like, this is the real deal here.
Exactly.
So, I think that's awesome, too. I think more and more of us are kind of coming around to that. And it's just totally a mindset thing. You just have to start thinking about it that way. We do have.
It really is ongoing too, where it's like I have to continually remind myself. I imagine eventually it should like stick, but you know, I think
everyone
when my kids barge in and stuff, it's hard to remember it is a real business, right? Because it's like, okay, I'm making a sandwich, and then I'll be But
that's what's, you know, those are, again, that comes back to what is valuable to you.
Exactly.
Like, for me, it's valuable to me that I don't have to get up before 9 o'clock if I don't want to.
Totally.
You know, like, I can go to work in my pajamas. Now, I don't, because my work clothes for dance is basically pajamas. So I wear those. But, you know, like, I can say, cool, I'm going to do yoga for an hour in the morning.
Exactly.
And Like, those are the things that are important to me.
So important. Totally.
Yeah. Like, you can totally build a business around what is important to you.
Exactly.
Amanda says she has to take laundry breaks all the time.
Exactly. It's kind of like, oh, I lost the word, you know, where you have like the set time to do a certain amount of stuff.
Pomodoro?
Yeah, it's like Pomodoro, but with laundry.
Yeah.
Slightly longer intervals.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So Stephanie has a question. She said, how do you deal with working with someone in a different time zone or work schedule or across the world? So how does that work if you're not in the same time zone?
That's an awesome question, because Frenchie's actually in Japan right now. So I'm on the west coast of Canada and she's in Japan Standard Time. I can't remember exactly, but usually she wakes up around my 2:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So, for us, we've actually found it really valuable in terms of, because I am on social media and stuff, we kind of cover the whole clock.
Yeah.
So that's been kind of nice in that sense. And honestly, a lot of it has to do with being flexible as well. So often if we want to kind of talk face to face, have a Zoom meeting or something, we'll schedule that for around, say, between 6 and 8 my time, at night. So it is, kind of working outside of normal hours.
Yeah.
But at the same time, my husband should be home by then. And so he can be, take the kids off so that they're not right on me. And, so that we can actually, Frenchie and I can communicate that way. We use Slack for communication a ton, so that, if it's something that's not urgent, I just send her a little email saying, yep, or not an email, like a little Slack message saying, hey, what about this? And we use Asana oh my goodness, I lost the word. It helps us organize things, right? A planner,
project management. Yeah.
Project management. Yeah.
Awesome.
So we have everything set up in there. And if we assign each other, I can assign her tasks as well, which is awesome. But if we have something coming up for a project and it's like, hey, I need this, we can just schedule it right in as a new task. So that works really well as well.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I think let's see. I don't see any more questions. I think that was some really awesome conversation there. I think we covered quite a bit more than virtual, but I'm really glad we did, because I think that's something those are conversations that I like to have with people, and I see that we see eye to eye on quite a few things. So I think that's awesome. So it's always awesome to find someone that you gel with.
Right? Exactly.
Awesome. Well, let's see. We have, coming up, we have a Q&A with Selena. We're going to be talking about some really cool stuff, so keep an eye out for that. That's in, I want to say the beginning of October. I forget if it's at the beginning or the end. Amanda will probably correct me. But Sarah, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you being here and chatting. I had fun. And it
was really fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
it was awesome.
Can you tell us where our audience can find you if they want to learn more about who you are and what you do?
Knit a Bit of Whimsy is my website.
Awesome.
Just www.knitabitofwhimsy.com. Instagram is where I probably hang out the most. And again, I'm at Knit a Bit of Whimsy. Awesome. Makes it easy, right? If you want to come and kind of say hi. I don't talk a ton about my VA stuff, but if you want to come hang out, I am thinking about opening more as almost train the VA type program. I don't know what to call it. It's going to start out with just a few blog posts and maybe some little spreadsheets and stuff to download.
Nice.
So if you're interested in kind of becoming a VA, maybe sign up for my mailing list or something. And it's still kind of a work in progress, but it's something that's back there. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. Audience, thank you guys for joining us. If you're watching on the replay, feel free to say hey or hello. And we'll see you all soon.
Totally. If you have questions, I'll try to pop back and keep an eye on things.
Awesome. Perfect. Bye, guys.
Yeah.